Black Politics Today, an eye for what's at stake in global politics and your source for the social, economic, and political impact of public policy on the African American community. Your host, Kelly Michael Williams, is a political strategy veteran with an undefeated campaign record and the political experience that spans nearly 3 decades, from Mayor Willie Brown in California to President Barack Obama in our nation's capital. So get ready for a fresh and honest approach on the politics that affect you and your family the most. Now, your host, Kelly Michael Williams.
I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'm your host, Kelly Michael Williams, and as always, we thank everyone for joining us as you do each and every week. I want to thank you all for tuning in to Black Politics Today. Tonight, as we do with every night, we try to make sure, every week, we try to make sure that we touch on a few top hot issues that are going on across the country, things that we may know about or may not know about, things that are going on in our community and around the globe that may have an impact on the African American community. And as I try to do each and every time, I first pause and thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for the opportunity to host this show and for giving me this platform and the privilege of being in this seat and having my guests come each and every week to join us to talk to us about the things that I personally think are vital to our future, and sometimes you guys will either email or tweet or text and tell us things that you'd like to hear us talk about, or subject matters or issues that you find concerning you and your population or your families. So again, we try to reach out and do what we can and cover the spectrum of things happening, because it's important and it needs to be, and especially as we get closer to 2016, another election year, another election cycle, we have to be engaged and involved, and I mean beyond the ballot box. We can't just sit around and think that just voting is going to be enough. We saw that was not enough even with the election of the first African American president. Just voting isn't enough. So many more things could have been passed. I mean, more laws could have been passed had we been more engaged in the legislative process and the lobbying process and the advocacy process. So many things have been available to us that we haven't taken advantage of, and unfortunately less than 14 more months and we'll have someone new in office, and we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what happens with that individual, depending on who it is and who it will be, and see what comes out of it. So hopefully, those of you who are joining in and listening, if you're joining us on Periscope or on Meerkat, please certainly text, tweet, retweet, or restream, if you will. Let everyone know. Subscribe to Black Politics Today. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, as well as on YouTube and Bliss FM, and do it so on the Meerkat and the Periscope platforms. Last November 2008, the country seemed to change dramatically and embrace the election of the first African American president of the United States. And then came September 2009, just 9 months after President Obama came into office in his first term. A little-known congressman from South Carolina named Joe Wilson, during a joint session of Congress, blurts out, "You lie," to the president in the middle of his speech. At that moment, everything that had been accomplished by the election of the first African American months earlier was erased in an instant. So many revolutions and statements have been started by a single voice. History shows that one person can make a difference in our society. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Pierre L'Enfant, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Trayvon Martin, and yes, even Barack Obama. Each of these individuals had a powerful impact on our society. With the latest racial tension among African Americans and the law enforcement resulting in the deaths of hundreds of unarmed black men, tensions have swelled, and with the recent events at Missouri University, have also continued to expand into our institution of higher learning. Something all too familiar to those of the civil rights era, who marched and fought just for education equality, But one man shined a spotlight on the racial injustices occurring at Missouri University. Over several years, African American students have been complaining of the racial treatment black students have been encountering, but have found no comfort from the administration officials. Graduate student Jonathan Butler decided to make the lack of resolve a real and personal issue. His hunger strike and a call for the resignation of the University President Tim Wolf started a social media onslaught that ultimately led to the resignation of both University President Tim Wolf and the Chancellor R. Bowen Lofton. To help me discuss the fallout and the tensions on Missouri University campus are my guests, Mr. Brandon Andrews, a communicator, social innovator, and entrepreneur. Brandon Andrews is the co-founder of Skill Target, a web application empowering job seekers to get the skills needed to be competitive. He spends his days at MWWPR, where he assists clients with corporate social responsibility, corporate communications, and public affairs. With value partnerships, Brandon organizes casting events around the nation focused on bringing more diverse ideas and voices to ABC's hit show Shark Tank. He is also leading an effort to support entrepreneurs through developing a network of capital, skills building, and other resources. Also joining me is Dr. Tammy Sanders-Henderson. It is Sanders-Henderson.
Yes, that's fine.
Tammy is a former academic program coordinator of ASALA, but she is also the visiting lecturer of Africana Studies in the Africana Studies Department at UMBC in Baltimore, Maryland. As I said, she's the former academic program coordinator for ASALA, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, founded by Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, and of course our Black Politics Today contributor Tom Morris. You've seen him on Deadline Crime with Tamron Hall and TV1's hit series Fatal Attraction. And for the last 2 decades, you've watched him hunt down dangerous fugitives on America's Most Wanted. He is also a former White House correspondent, White House Press Corps member, and law enforcement and terror specialist with the State Department. We also had invited Miss Catherine Wetley from the University of Missouri to join us. She may be calling in later on, but we have not gotten confirmation we had confirmation, but we haven't gotten a follow-up from her to know if she'll actually join us tonight. But nonetheless, please help me in joining my guests and welcome them all to the show. Well, and let me go to you, Tammy, because you professor, major university, and things like that, where you get faculty involved, where you get the whole coaching team and staff getting behind the football team. When you think about the chain of events that happened, what went through your mind, and as you thought about it, did you picture or see anything how that would have transpired on your campus, or how the response would have been on your campus?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've actually held several conversations with students over the course of the past week, and even today, just about how that would have looked on our campus. And I think that there are some things that the Missouri students got right, and they did an excellent job, and certainly should be celebrated that they understood how to organize and to get the support of the faculty behind them, and as well as bringing attention to the matter. And so they did things in a great way. I think how that would look differently on our campus. Every campus has a different atmosphere, has a different spirit. Right. And so the University of Maryland, Baltimore County is a commuter school. So you don't have the same type of organizing in the ways that you may see at some of the other schools in this area even, or at Missouri. You don't have the same connection or investment. I'll say investment in that. Right. And so and you have students that are seriously concerned about what's going to happen after they leave and whether or not they're going to receive backlash, whether or not they're going to get into grad school,
Right.
whether or not they'll be employed. They are concerned about those things. Not all of them, but how...
That's an important factor that I have to be honest with. I never thought of in that sense, because one of my questions was going to be, and to whoever I presented to, was, should this be replicated on other campuses to make sure that justice, in the sense of whatever injustices there are on those campuses, is somehow realized or served? And I have you chime in here too, Tom. Where is it, and what is it that needs to be done to make sure that, you know, these similar issues doesn't take a hunger strike, and to that point, even the football team, to get behind them, for them to get notice or get, you know, to get some attention. What about that backlash? What if, because I'm being treated unfairly, I protest, but now when I apply to grad school, or if I'm in grad school, when I apply for my job, because now I'm all over social media, you can Google my name, I'm everywhere, and they're doing my background investigation, like, oh, you're the one that started the riots out there. Yeah, well, thank you, but we'll pass. What happens now?
I think that's the chance you take when you stand up for your rights. I mean, John Lewis stood up for his rights 50 years ago, and how long's he been in Congress?
50 years.
So, you know,
right,
you can't worry about the repercussions of standing up for your rights. I think in the Missouri situation, it wouldn't have come to what it came to had the president not been completely tone deaf to what was going on.
Exactly.
Even when students had confronted him directly,
right,
he literally ignored them, drove past them, didn't say a word, would not engage. This went on for months and months and months.
Well,
And
apparently from Jonathan's take on it, from when he started, it was there when he was a undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it started when he was an undergrad. Different things occurred, and they made complaints, and nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally at the grad school, he said, you know what, I'm just tired of it. Now I'm going to stand up and say something about it, which I commend him for.
Yeah.
I mean, but one hand, it's like, should it have taken 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, depending on how long it's 5 years been in grad school, should it have taken that long? And the answer, of course, is no. And then the other thing is like, yeah, why? Why did it take so long?
Well, one thing about Missouri, and I spent a lot of time in Missouri, going all the way back to the 60s when I had relatives there. And Missouri sided with the Confederacy, okay?
Yeah.
You know, they're out in the Midwest, but they basically were a rebel state in the Midwest. And there's a long legacy there of racism. We saw what happened, you know,
right,
with Ferguson.
Right.
That Ferguson exposed Missouri,
yeah,
and it just pulled back the Band-Aid on things that America didn't know really were going on out there in the heartland.
Right.
And so the fact that these students have been encountering systematic racism in the 21st century in 2015, God only knows what they were going through in 75, 85, 95. This is indicative of a state that has a lot of racial history that is bad.
We paid our money to come to university. We paid our money to get educated by you. We paid our money to buy these books and then to do all this. We have to pay our money to do all this. But yet you don't hear our voice when we're crying out for help. You don't hear our voice when we need assistance. You don't hear our voice when something's going on that's burdening us. But if, and hopefully you don't take this the wrong way, audience especially, but if that was a woman saying, I'm being harassed, or, you know, somebody's coming after me, certainly there would have been voices, or certainly that voice would have been heard. Certainly people would have listened to that. But here, if it's, and I kind of look at it or see it in the sense that the number of African Americans on campus didn't rise to the level to where the monetary value of what they paid for their education was going to be so egregious to my bottom line to where it would make a difference. But the amount of money that that football team was going to bring in was certainly to that level where I had to be sure I made a decision, or made sure that a decision was made and that those voices were heard at this time rather than prior to. Tammy, what do you make of that?
Well, I think, and this is one of the things that came out in my conversations with the students on our campus, that we don't have a football team. UMBC does not have a football team. So where students are able to locate that pressure point on campuses, like ours, it's different, and it's going to look different than a Missouri, right? Mizzu. And that is, I think, one of the other challenges when you talk about, you don't have athletes that are, you don't have, a basketball team that's, bringing in revenue in that way. And so then when you don't have that, what do you do? How do you make the administration listen to your voice? And so what we've seen on our campus, you have, some small marches, you have students meeting and venting, and the conversation is there. The administration is moving more slowly on their part.
Right.
And it's the same thing everywhere. We want more black faculty. We want, some of the same issues. We want to feel safe.
And I think I saw something, and I'm not sure if it was Missouri or if it was Kansas State, because Kansas University, because they had some issues as well. But now they're talking about they're going to start hiring a diversity officer. They're going to hire more black faculty. Why didn't you do that before? What is and it's. And even this election cycle, I can tell you right now, this election cycle is going to piss me off. Because I'm just like, why do we have to always wait to the end before we get recognized for anything? But yet when you want something, you're going to always run to us to get it. Yeah, Tom, you wanted to chime in.
But if you look at all the major universities, the black population of students, and most of them is somewhere around 2%. 3%.
Well, a lot of that, and in fact, if in just recently, back in Michigan, University of Michigan, their enrollment has almost, plummeted, or it has plummeted, but almost depleted itself in terms of African Americans because of their rejection of affirmative action and their policies, and Texas as well. They have literally absolutely no African Americans enrolled in the university because of their policies. And
the numbers.
And you have to look at that. I mean, the whole idea that I have to pay to get taught something so I can go get a job, but you require me to have that education to get the job. But then when I pay you my money, you decide whether or not you want to accept me or not. Give me a break. I don't understand the whole concept. I got to pay you to look at my application. Then I got to pay you to take a test for you to let me in. Then I got to pay you to get in, but then you decide whether or not I'm going to come or not, and then I don't get my money back.
And when I leave, I'm $100,000 in debt.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, and this is the thing. You have more black students actually coming into TWIs, traditionally white institutions, right? The problem is, even though you see more black students in those institutions, you don't see those numbers reflected in the faculty and the administration.
Or in the graduation rate.
So you don't have... you have some departments that are the faculty, the administrators are all white. You have some faculty, you have one person of color, one woman. And that's an issue.
And that's truly it. It's usually a woman.
Across the board.
Right. And coming into office, we thought, and I think rightly so, there was a transformation in the body of the United States. There was a transformation of the first African American elected, and I can vividly remember that night and just the aura of, oh my God, it is real. It is real. I mean, I kind of wanted to cry and couldn't cry, and I kind of wanted to just jump up, and I was just like, dang, this is real. And then they came out, and they gave the speech, and the whole first lady, the kids, everyone, it was just the aura. Joint session of Congress. Hasn't been in office 9 months. You lie. You lie. Where is it? I mean, where, why, how is it that someone, a sitting member of Congress, comes out, calls the president a liar in the joint session? Now, you may...
On live television.
Right. On live television. You may say something about it, that's not factual, this isn't true. I mean, George Bush never got that. President Clinton never got that. All right? H.W. never got it. Reagan never got it, even though Reagan lied about Iran-Contra. He never got that, right? None of that happened. I mean, they called Ollie North a liar, maybe, but he was lying. but he was just a military guy out there. He wasn't the president of the United States. On live television, in the chambers, and you just call him lying. And it seemed like it just went down. Not to mention that, the Senate majority leader at the time was like, he's a one-termer. We got, we're going to make sure he's out of here. And never wanted to work with him. But that seemed to trigger a whole lot across the country that we now see from the law enforcement and the shooting and killing of unarmed men and so many other things, that now it's at our universities. You got Apple coming out talking about where they're sorry that they targeted the teenagers or the school guys who came into this Apple store because we didn't really want to racially profile them, but we racially profiled them. It's just ridiculous. So how and why has this atmosphere changed so dramatically? And I say that how and why because, again, on the surface, it looked like things were about to change for the better. We're supposed to be in a post-racial society. We're not supposed to have this. We elected the first African-American president. We're not racist any longer. We're fine. What the what?
I mean, actually, he got elected twice.
Twice.
Twice. Yeah. We didn't think it happened the first time. The second time, I was like, no, there's no way this lightning can strike twice. And it did. And yet, here we are. Racism has reared its ugly head because a certain percentage of the guardians of old whiteness, basically, want to keep things the way they will never be again. This country will be brown, majority brown, by the year 2050.
Right.
And you have the Mitch McConnell type people in this world, in this country, who are fighting and clinging to anything they can to take things back to Mayberry, which it'll never go back. People marry interracially now. These kids date whoever they want. Right. Race is not an issue among my kids' generation.
Right.
I don't know.
The millennials, they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. It's just a small percentage of their generation that have been brought up racist. There are some in their generation that are racist. We saw those kids singing that horrific frat song about, about black people. Right. So yes, there are some, and they are still being taught the traditions of racism, but they are a minority.
Right.
And all of this backlash that we see now, and people finally having to stand up here to fight for this and stand over here to fight against that and fight over here for this, it's because the pendulum is swinging. And a lot of people want to stop that pendulum from swinging the way it's going.
It really is. And you can chime in too, Brandon, because I want to transition to the 2016 and I think your conference down in South Carolina, your 2020 conference. But looking at this, I mean, if we're really supposed to be at a post-racial society, a post-racial time, it seems that we have gotten more racially divided than not. And ironically, everyone wants to blame the president for that. But it seems to me that with the development of social media, we're able to find out and discover that there is so much going on that we didn't realize was happening beforehand because it couldn't get caught on camera. But now that it's caught on camera, now we actually see it and know it. Even though we heard about it, it was always, and especially in law enforcement case, it was always a law enforcement officer saying, well, he reached for his waistband or he reached for my gun, so I was scared, I had to act. But now we see that that's not always true. And now it's getting into our educational system. Our politics is everywhere. What gives?
For the past couple of months, you know that I've been working on a concert called Shining a Light. And so A&E Networks and iHeartRadio have come together and it's a benefit concert. Pharrell Williams, Sting, Alicia Keys, Zach Brown Band, Jamie Foxx, Smokey Robinson, Miguel, 115 great folks, diverse group. And part of the money is going to go to the AME Church, specifically Mother Emanuel AME in Charleston, to help with their recovery. The other part is going to go to a fund that we're setting up to give grants to organizations around the country that are doing racial reconciliation or addressing disparities that break along racial lines. It's going to be a 2-hour concert that'll air on November 20th, and then it'll be a 1-hour documentary where we've taken Pharrell Williams from Charleston. We took John Legend from Ferguson, and we took Alicia Keys from Baltimore to have conversations with people on the ground. And we want to continue to have those conversations around the nation. I think these types of efforts, coupled with, again, what's happened in Missouri, what's happened in places all over the country, means that the country, maybe for the first time, is recognizing the responsibility of everyone in the country to deal with these issues and to help us move forward. I think people are realizing that as a country, we can't move forward. We can't get to the places that, the president certainly talked about during his first, election campaign. And we certainly can't get to a lot of the places that other folks that speak in aspirational ways want us to get to without directly addressing this issue, without directly addressing the issue of unconscious bias, without directly addressing the issue of structural racism, without directly addressing these issues that lead to some difficult conversations, but conversations that need to happen and conversations that have to happen for us to move forward together. And so that's one effort that's hopefully positive, and for a network like A&E that really over-indexes in the majority population. I mean, the folks that are watching A&E and History and Lifetime and FYI, History 2, generally speaking, a lot of them aren't Black and brown. And so being able to speak to that type of audience and having an entertainment company, want to have these conversations, want to use their power, the media power, to have these conversations, I think is a significant thing.
Absolutely, and I want to commend you on that, because I know that you have always been very engaged in the Black community and making sure that there was some sense of equality in forms of social, economic, and political areas to make sure that their voices are heard, and the things that are going out there, the things that are happening out there are available and also transparent. So I want to commend you on that and continue doing what you're doing. I'm assuming you're going to probably have to cut off here in a second, but let me get Tom in here as well to chime in, because with that, with certain things like that, we were talking, and we're going to real quickly get to just this idea of what's happening in 2016. Where are we going to be in 2016? What is it going to look like for us? Because it's certainly not going to look like 2008 and 2014 or 2012. It's not going to look like that. So what is it going to look like for us?
All I can hope is that something is going to energize the voters to come out and participate. Because as you said earlier, if we don't really participate in the process, anything can happen, and we really will end up with something we really don't want. And right now there are some really interesting choices being offered up to America, to put it tactfully. People are going to have to get involved. I think that right now people are energized because of Black Lives Matter, because of all this activism that we're seeing. I think that a sleeping giant has slowly started to awaken in the past, since Trayvon Martin, really.
Right.
And I think that as the year begins to move into 2016 and we start to see the campaign heat up, hopefully people will be involved and engaged, and all of us can do our part to try to get people to be engaged, particularly young.
And Tammy, when you're talking to your kids and you're talking about Africana studies, you're talking about Black history, you're talking about the issues that you're dealing with, a Mizzu issue, a Trayvon Martin issue, other issues that are going around that are really affecting them as millennials. What is their tenor? What is their atmosphere thinking about in terms of how they're going to impact, how they're going to influence society when they graduate, even now, before they graduate?
Well, I think you have maybe two, probably more camps. You have those students that are completely oblivious to what is happening in the world around them, and they are okay with that. Some of them are quite fine with that. That's one camp. And another camp, you have those that their consciousness is slowly awakening. It's like, oh, I didn't know what was going on, but I'm actually I'm kind of interested now. You pique my interest. Let's go. And then you have those that they're there, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to take that energy and mobilize it or put it into something that is something that will sustain itself. Right. Even after they leave the university, or something that will go with them when they leave the university. And so aside from having these kind of small bursts of, moments on campus of marches or conversations, if you will, I want to go back a little bit. Right before, I think on Halloween, there was a student on our campus that sent a Snapchat. He was in blackface. And so that got the students kind of in an uproar, and there was a small march and maybe some conversations happening, but that's about as far as it went, unfortunately. And that's what I mean, students, even those that they're slowly kind of awakening, and those that want to do more and they see themselves in those kind of last two camps, they have to figure out what their leverage is, like what they're willing to invest in it. Right. And of course not being afraid to risk that in order to do it, but what it is that how they see themselves within it. I think part of the job of the faculty is to help them see where it is they fit, and how they can use whatever power they can on the campus. And so you have a number of things. My students, those that are interested, they are very interested, but some are fearful, some are just angry. Right. Some are simply just angry.
Brandon, if you're still with us, real quick, tell us how we can get in contact with you, how we can follow you, because we want to make sure we tune in on November 20th for the show. Give us that real quick, and then I'm gonna let you go so you can get ready for your flight, and I'm gonna finish up here real quickly.
At Brandon Talk on Twitter. The name of the concert and the campaign, because this isn't something that's going to end when the concert ends, but it's Shining a Light. You can go to shiningalightconcert.com. Follow Shining a Light on Twitter at Shining Light Now, or on Facebook, facebook.com/Shining Light Now. You'll see videos of Pharrell and Alicia Keys and other folks that are talking about these issues, and not just talking about the concert, but talking about the fun and talking about the potential, I think, that lies in having conversations around the nation, over the next couple of years. So, thank you, Cliff, for having me on as always, and looking forward to coming back and discussing more, and definitely enjoy being on with the two other guests this evening.
Absolutely. I certainly look forward to having you back here and being in the studio with us. So have a safe trip. I will certainly be in touch with you, and I want to thank you for taking the time out, sitting in the airport, going through everything that you went through to join us tonight. But we'll certainly be in touch, and be safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. So Tom, let me go to you, because I want to really hit on Paris, and we didn't get a chance to do it, and I apologize, because I did want to take a moment before we started and pause in a moment of silence for those who had lost their lives in Paris, and for that I didn't do it earlier, but I can still do it now. So we're going to take a few moments just to pause for those who lost their lives to the terror attack in Paris, and give our own, in our own way, a prayer or something that you would do for those who have lost their lives. So Tom, the GOP has come out now talking about that they don't want Syrian refugees coming to America, but just 2 weeks ago they were saying that we weren't having enough come. So they were getting on the president about not opening the borders enough because he only wanted 10,000. Now they're saying, well, no, we should do more because other nations are doing 200,000 and doing everything else. But now they're coming out saying no. Isn't it and correct me if I'm wrong, because you have some of the special diplomatics, terrorists, and all that other skills. Yeah, I said all that other. I said it. That's right. All that skills and product, but we don't really know who ISIS is in terms of being able to identify them. Now, I can look at you and say, you're Tom, you're African American, you're here. I can look at Tammy, and but ISIS, we don't know who they are. We don't know what they look like. We don't know what they're not identifiable. And it's a lot like Al Qaeda and the Taliban was. So how do we have this fight? How do we engage in this war that everyone wants us to go to on the right? But who are we going to engage?
I think that in certain areas of Syria and Iraq right now, we know.
We know they're located.
We know where they are.
Yeah, we know where they are.
In Yemen, we know where they are with the Houthis. This is not going to be solved by bombing people. It's not going to be solved by that. It's going to take the same effort that the world took against Hitler and the Japanese. You have a global threat to humanity. And that is just the blunt, cold reality of it.
It really is.
And the only way to do it is to you're going to have to make the sacrifice that you have to go and fight these people.
So, in essence, what you're saying is what French president was saying. We're about to enter World War III. We're about to enter World War III, and it's one of those things where the key, I think, to that is going to be Russia and China. Where are they going to be? Where are they going to sit? Because as long as Putin is supporting Assad and fighting against those who are trying to fight against the rebels, what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to do that, and unless Turkey and Jordan decide to get off their behinds with Saudi Arabia, how are we going to fight this in a Muslim area to be able to identify and know who we're fighting if we're not just fighting areas? Because the truth of the matter is, they can easily go across the border here or there, and you'll never know who they are or what they look like.
I mean, this is a complex mess now. You have Germany already saying that they were going to accept 800,000 refugees. They've got to be terrified now that they made that decision after what happened in Paris. In France, Muslims are going to outnumber Frenchmen within another 30 years. France will be a predominantly Muslim nation by 2055. So where we're going to fight is, this battleground is everywhere now, really.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. There's no one place. But at least in the places where we know their boots are on the ground, where they are occupying people, we always say after Rwanda, never again. Never again.
Right.
Never again. The world says it over and over again.
And I think that's the struggle that the president's struggling with, is because America doesn't want us to go back, but they want us to go back. They want us to go back, but they don't want us to spend any money, and they don't want anyone to get killed. Well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
We're spending $4 billion just to feed these people, right? $4 billion to feed them. How much you think much more it is going to send tanks, troops, 50,000, 60,000, 100,000, because it's going to take at least 300,000 soldiers to get over there to do it. You're going to have you have to be in boots on the ground.
And this war will look different, right? Because Al Qaeda and the Taliban didn't have social media. This war won't even get played out. This is going to be a technological war as much as it will be boots on the ground.
Very good point.
So,
because that's how they're recruiting now.
Exactly.
That's how they're recruiting. And they're recruiting Americans.
Yeah. So you're not even going to see it in the same way. I told my students just today, you will have to, if this goes through, they will have to adjust to a new normal. Because life as we know it will definitely change.
I got to thank my guest tonight, Brandon Andrews, who's on the plane to LA, Tom Morris, who's here in the studio, and also Dr. Tammy Sanders-Henderson, excuse me. We're going to get that right together. America was built primarily on the backs of Native Americans and African Americans brought over as slaves. The farms, they were tilled and tended by black slaves. Those same slaves built buildings, tended cattle, and basically did everything and anything in America to build it up. And we're still in the Constitution as three-fifths clause. We're still in the three-fifths clause, something that I'm going to start talking about and start dealing with, because it's very interesting. That three-fifths clause came about to determine how many they were going to be able to count, so they can make sure that there wasn't the population and know how many members of Congress are going to get in the southern states. But we're listed as 3/5 of a person, property. We're owned because the slave owners owned us. And that's a problem. And we have got to start addressing that. It is the reality of such that continues to haunt African Americans across this country to remain concerned and sometimes afraid of clashes with white America. Because with so many things going on right now, and I think that's something we talked about earlier, that's why so many African Americans are concerned about whether or not they get involved or don't get involved, or if they make a reaction or don't make a reaction. When you don't know where you stand or what's going to happen, you're going to do the most safe thing, which is retreat and get back, or you're going to fight and explode. So America, we have got to do more than just vote. We have got to start making sure that we are part of this process, and we're going to start doing something to put out a constitutional amendment to change that issue where we are 3/5 of a person in the U.S. Constitution. And we don't talk about it much. It's not said much, but it's still in the Constitution. It has to be removed. Until next time, I want to thank my guests again, Tom Morris, Tammy Sanders-Henderson, and Brandon Andrews. Until next time, join us again. Please subscribe to us on Periscope, on Twitter, and on Meerkat. If it's political, if it's social, if it's economic, it's Black Politics Today. Thank you.